So this is some pollen that I harvested and stole from my bees last summer. And this is some of that same pollen that's been put through a grinder like that and just made into a sort of a powder. And, and the smell is just pungent and it just smells like pollen. It's very strong pollen smell. And this is a common bee feed or pollen substitute that's often used for making fake pollen patties or protein patties. And it smells like flour. And this does not smell like flour. This doesn't have any smell really. Alright, so this is this is little slabs of fondant, beekeeper's fondant, not real baker's fondant, but just beekeeper's fondant with nothing in it other than sugar. I put the water in there just so it doesn't stick, so it doesn't burn. And I'm gonna warm it up and melt it down. Then I'll add some ground up pollen pellets, real 100% pollen. That looks like this. This is the last of the pollen that I stole from my bees last summer. It smells so fragrant, it's amazing. This might be a method for providing protein or pollen patties for beekeepers who don't want to spend money on pollen patties because they're expensive, or they can be expensive. This is I'm doing this with fondant, but you could probably just do this with sugar and maybe sugar syrup. I don't know. This is all experimental. So this is only about 250 milliliters, or about half a pint of pollen pellets. Alright, so this is melting, and this is the discoloration is just from some pollen that I already melted in this pan. My bees here in Flat Rock, for whatever reason, they seem to collect more pollen than they can use throughout the summer. So I take it from them, I leave them enough to get by, and I spread it out for my other honeybee colonies that may need it. Either they don't have enough pollen in their area, or they didn't collect enough pollen for the spring, so I give it to them. So in other words, it doesn't harm to take the pollen from the bees and spread it out. If there's one colony that has more than it needs, then I steal its pollen and I give it to colonies that could use the pollen, and they all benefit instead of just one. I added sugar, or added a little bit of water to help melt the fondant so it wouldn't stick to the pan, but I don't think it needs much water. This is just a little bit of standard white granulated sugar. I added about a cup of sugar. Now I'm only adding the sugar, just using it as a binder, I guess. Boop. Look at that. Whew, that looks neat. So this stuff is definitely thicker than the last batch. I added less water and I added more sugar. So here's some of the bee food as it's sold as. It comes in 2-pound bags, and it probably doesn't have any real pollen in it. But look at the difference. Look at the difference in the color. This is the first batch. It's got some pollen bits, darker pellets that didn't get ground up fully, and this one that has none of that. It's all just a uniform color. So I'm sure that's way more nutritious and beneficial for my spring bees than anything I'm going to get there. Not to say that this is bad stuff, but this is probably better because it's real pollen. This has been like this for about an hour. This is more of the consistency of a normal pollen patty. I should have put parchment paper underneath this so I can just peel it off easily. This is okay. So I'll give that to my bees as soon as I can, and I'll just cut open the underside of the pollen under the parchment paper, and the parchment paper will keep it moist. What's good about the squishy pollen patties is that you don't necessarily need a rim to put it in the hive. You can just put it over the top bars and then just squish it into the frames.